I'll tell you the single best upgrade I ever made to my setup, a standing desk. For real, with the amount of time I spend at my desk, my back would crumple like tissue paper if I wasn't able to work standing up. Thankfully, this video's sponsor, Eureka Ergonomic, have a huge range of top quality standing desks that combine both form and functionality. Like their stunning Arc series, which you can get up to 25% off when you visit eurekaergonomic.com/skillup. Click below to check it out or stick around to the end of the video to learn more. Gamers, hello and welcome to Summer Games Fest Week 2024. It all starts here in this video, sort of. So this is actually kind of a regular show in the sense that we're going to do a deep dive into Sony's recent showcase, and we're going to do the rest of the news, announcements, and what's coming out this week, etc. So it's kind of normal. Later this week though, things get pretty wild. Just as this video goes live, I'll be arriving in LA for a full 5 days of showcases, briefings, and hands-on sessions. During that time, the team and I are going to be pumping out videos to cover as much as we can. You can expect to see dedicated videos for Jeff's Summer Games Showcase, the annual Xbox Showcase, and the annual Ubisoft Forward. We're also going to be keeping an eye on the other 6 or 7 showcases happening that week, the lesser-known ones like Future Game Show, PC Game Show, Day of the Devs, etc. And we'll be bringing you highlights from those so you know which games really stood out. Outside of that, I'm going to be going hands-on with like 10 games this year, and you can definitely expect to see dedicated video coverage for some or all of them. Just a heads up, all of that coverage is going to be a lot more relaxed than my typical videos. I don't have the luxury of being able to script stuff while I'm there, so expect more off-the-cuff impressions and sadly, some face cam. I know, I don't like my face any more than you do, but unfortunately, this is the only one I got, so we both got to put up with it, okay? Alright, that's pretty much all I got for the intro bit, so without further ado, let's say we take a look at that PlayStation showcase, huh? So technically just then, I misspoke. This was not a PlayStation showcase. It was a PlayStation State of Play, a subtle but very important difference. The showcases are where Sony feels like they've really got a lot of big stuff to crow about. Last year they had Helldivers 2, Metal Gear 3 Remake, Final Fantasy 16, Marathon, and Spider-Man 2. That was a pretty impressive haul, and looking back on that list and comparing it to this year's showing, you can understand why this webinar got the designation that it did. But that's not to say that this State of Play was at all disappointing, since a lot of what was shown looked pretty cool, except for maybe the headline offering. Roll it, Stu.
It wasn't the plan. It was a spontaneous, creative decision made after years of careful research.
Being really old and almost dying a bunch doesn't count as research.
Almost dying is the best way to learn how not to die. Besides, it worked, didn't it?
How much longer for the upload?
A few more minutes. Hey.
So this is Concord, or at least it's the cinematics for Concord. It's clearly riffing on some Guardians of the Galaxy vibes in a way that's probably a little on the nose. Yeah, this was a long trailer that would have cost a lot of money to make, and I don't know that it really helped. Certainly the like ratio on the YouTube upload is not good. At the time of writing, it's sitting at around 170,000 views, 21,000 dislikes to 4K likes. Ouch. But to be honest, what did they expect? Like, this is not good. It just doesn't hit right. Like, you look at the Overwatch character cinematics that this is clearly trying to emulate, and those things hit hard, like goddamn bullseye every time. This just felt generic and meandering and long, just like really long. Smash cut to some actual gameplay and the reception is even worse. Over 41k dislikes on that video, absolutely brutal comment section, very little enthusiasm for this video game. But what is Concord? Well, it's a 5v5 hero shooter. It's unclear how objectives focused it might be at this point, but I'm gonna guess quite a bit since arena shooters aren't really the go-to these days. We saw 5 characters revealed, but the launch will have a full 16, each of them with their own unique kits a la Overwatch and Team Fortress and every other hero shooter we've ever seen. Interestingly enough, the main touch point for this one may not be a hero shooter at all, but instead Destiny. That's because a number of Bungie's former PvP-focused developers went across to form Firewalk Studios, the studio making this game. The Destiny DNA is absolutely on display. The verticality, the floating jump that kind of looks like a Warlock jump, the trip mine grenade, the Titan bubble, and the Fist of Havoc style smash. It's there, man, it definitely is. And while I think the setting and characters for this look pretty uninspired, I'm not ready to write off the gameplay side of this just yet. There were flashes of cool shit here where I was like, okay, that could be fun. Say what you will about Destiny, but they knew how to make a shooter that felt great to play. They never could balance the PvP side of the game because the PvE side made that impossible. But freed from that PvE loot game, maybe they could make a really fun, tightly balanced Crucible in all but name. and I personally would be down for that. I'll tell you the other thing about this that continues to hold my interest. Sony bought this studio before they'd even released their first game. They went in, they play tested it, and they were like, this is so good that we have to buy this studio. And listen, I'm not here to tell you that Sony is infallible, because Lord knows they're not, but they very often know a good thing when they see it, so there might be something there that we shouldn't just write off immediately. At the same time, Firewalk are promising weekly cutscene story things to advance the game's narrative, and I don't know about that, to be honest. Weekly is a lot, and I don't think it's going to be what keeps people coming back. I think that effort would be better spent expanding the gameplay side of things rather than adding some drip-fed narrative. Do note that this is not a free-to-play game. It will instead be a PS Plus title, and you have to assume it'll sell for like 30 or 40 bucks on Steam. Helldivers 2 set a very high bar for what to expect when it comes to in-game spending for a Sony live service title, and it's going to be very interesting to see how this one compares, especially as a premium box product. So yeah, a rocky start to Concord, but there is a beta coming in July where we get to suck it and see for ourselves. The term Concord does have ominous connotations when it comes to both air travel and sea. Let's hope it fares a little better in space. Surprising absolutely no one, God of War Ragnarok is coming to PC on September 19th. It'll feature unlocked frame rates, various upscaler support, super widescreen support, and it'll come bundled with the absolutely excellent Valhalla DLC. That is all great news, fist pumps and firm handshakes all round. The bad news, it requires a PSN to play it. Now obviously, this really blows. Many people don't want to give Sony their data because Sony has a bad track record with this stuff. But more importantly, many people are not able to give Sony their data because the PSN is not available in over 170 countries and territories. And if you live in one of those countries or territories, you will not be able to purchase this video game just like you couldn't purchase Ghost of Tsushima when it released last month. That is a really bullshit outcome that is super unfair to a bunch of people who could have been Sony's happy customers, but were instead left out in the cold like that Conan meme. It continues to be rather shambolic how Sony are approaching this whole thing, and I wonder if their lawyers are scrambling behind the scenes to figure out a solution to all of this, because this has got to be costing Sony a lot of money. Anyway, that's that. What's next? Oh yeah, they're making a new Dynasty Warriors game. Dynasty Warriors Origins is the first current-gen only Dynasty Warriors game to release this generation, and the most surprising thing about that is that they're still making Dynasty Warrior games. I got over this series a long time ago, but God bless anyone who's still into them. From the show notes Edmond left me, he seems to be very pumped for this, so I know there are likely dozens of you that feel the same. Next thing that caught my eye was this one, Ballad of Antaria, and yeah, take a look.
I have seen the miracles you so claim. Until the towering shadows vanished into the mist.
I pray for their grace, but all that came were inferior shades.
So obviously, this has got a lot of Elden Ring energy, no doubt about that. But it does look cool, I think. The art design looks strong, and some of the combat looks flashy, and the boss encounters look kind of epic. It's from a studio called Tipsworks, who had earlier put out another Souls-like game called Pascal's Wager back in 2021. Middling reviews for that one, but this one looks to be way better financed, as the presentation values are like chalk and cheese versus their previous game. Here's the kicker though. Ballad of Antaria is a free-to-play game, and yeah, free-to-play Elden Ring. Does that ring anyone's bell? It's obviously different from Elden Ring, not least of all because it's positioning itself as a multiplayer game supporting 3-player co-op. But yeah, I don't know how you get a game that looks like this and then make it free to play, and I suspect I don't really want to know. Either way, I'll keep an eye on it because it does look interesting. No date for it yet, but it's arriving 2025. Believe it or not, and I certainly do not, but Sony included some actual PSVR 2 games in this showcase. 2 of them, in fact. The first is called Behemoth, and it comes from the people who made The Walking Dead Saints and Sinners, one of the better VR games out on the market. This is kind of like Skyrim, but VR, but also not Skyrim VR, because that's actually a thing that exists, and this is different. Definitely making use of the first-person perspective in more interesting ways than Skyrim was ever able to do. No release window for this one yet. The other PSVR 2 title was Alien Rogue Incursion, and it's a single-player action horror game delivering an all-new story set in the Alien universe, a high bar to live up to after Alien Isolation, which you can play in VR as well, by the way. This one arrives towards the back end of this year. Now, I know we spent the opening block ragging on generic hero shooters, but if you give me playable Aurora Monroe, then I am there day one. Show 'em, Stu.
together.
Marvel Rivals has had a little bit of controversy around it, what with that dodgy-ass influencer agreement saying that you couldn't criticize the game, but it seemed an even sillier own goal because by all accounts the game is actually pretty good. It's a little more MOBA than it is team shooter, but those lines are pretty blurry these days anyway. I just think this looks fun, I do. I'm genuinely quite interested in cape stuff that lets me play some of the lesser known heroes or the ones that don't get picked as often, and this has plenty of that in there, so I am down. There's a beta coming to PS5 in July, and there's some exclusive content for playing it on PlayStation, like a Scarlet Spider costume for Spidey. Hey, this next one looks pretty cool. Take a look. This is Where Winds Meet, a newly revealed game from Chinese-based Everstone Studio. It's an open-world action game with a big focus on boss encounters, and you can tell because this trailer alone had like 10 boss battles, all of them looking pretty awesome. It's grounded in Chinese mythology and martial arts, and it's been in development for over 5 years, so clearly the team has been putting the work into it. A really, really strong reveal trailer, I think. It's definitely put the game on my radar. There's no date for it yet, but I expect it to be out sometime next year. There were rumors that an Until Dawn remake was in the works, and they turned out to be true. The remake was confirmed and revealed here, and it will arrive toward the back end of the year. Path of Exile 2, not gonna lie, pretty damn excited for this one. Path of Exile 1 just sort of grew to be so massive and intimidating over the years that it was kind of scary to step into it as a newcomer, and when word started circulating about a sequel, I was like, oh, yep, that is my chance, I'm gonna do it. The road to this sequel has been a very long one with plenty of false starts along the way, but we appear to be getting to the pointy end now, as this trailer showcased a fantastic looking video game that supports crossplay, cross-progression, and even couch co-op. You love to see it. No specific date for this one yet, but GGG did confirm that it will launch into early access later this year. Genuinely very pumped for this one. Next up, Silent Hill. Oh boy.
I'm going either way.
No, you shouldn't be here.
Okay, so this was not a good trailer. The problem, in large part, is that Silent Hill doesn't really work well in trailers. It's about the slow burn, the atmosphere, the fog. The problem is that you can't base a trailer on fog because trailers, generally speaking, need to actually show things, which is kind of the exact opposite of what fog does. There were other issues, of course. Some of the character designs were a bit questionable. The animation looks a bit stiff. It just looks tonally and visually like it's missing the mark. Following this show, however, Konami did a separate Silent Hill showcase where they showed off even more of the game. This was significantly better because this was 13 minutes of actual uncut gameplay, and presented this way, you could feel the vibes coming through. It wasn't one-to-one with the original, it still doesn't feel quite right, but watching the footage made me realize that at least part of the effect that Silent Hill 2 had on us back in the day was because of how gritty and grainy those visuals had to be, owing to the limitations of hardware. You can't recreate that in quite the same way in the modern era, or if you can, Bloober Team have not managed to figure out a way to do it. Regardless, there were some impressive locations and encounters here. The facial animations and voice work also seemed pretty solid. I'll put it this way, I've been very skeptical about this remake since the moment it was revealed, but this long-form gameplay definitely made me feel more optimistic. It doesn't look like an RE2 or RE4 level slam dunk in the making, but I'm hopeful that it comes together well enough and that Bloober Team don't mess up the story too badly. Finally, we did get a release date for this one. It's arriving October 8th for PS5 and PC. Sony saved the best two for last. Monster Hunter Wilds was revealed last year at the Game Awards, and here we got our second look at it. It is looking fantastic. Show 'em, Stu.
I've selected you as a lead hunter for this expedition.
Thank you, sir.
Top to bottom, from the first second to the last, this trailer absolutely ruled. It was narrative and location focused, not giving away too much in terms of weapons, armor, or broader sandbox, but we did see a big focus on mounted play, including a snazzy move where your mount will scoop you up after you get knocked down. Visually, this is just out of control. The RE engine is witchcraft. It's crazy how good it runs and what it can do. It's insane. The art style and color work on display here is so expert. It's both vibrant but also understated. Like, it has all this visual flair and distinctiveness, but it also feels very grounded. More so than the last game, in fact. It just looks so excellent, and 2025 cannot come soon enough. While we wait for that though, we do have a little something to keep us busy. Anyone who's taken the time to play through the Astro's Playroom game thing that came free with your PS5 will tell you that it was absolutely genius. From its controls, to its clever use of PlayStation hardware, to its fantastic use of PlayStation IP, it was just a great game, and is unironically one of the best PS5 exclusives, because let's be real, there aren't that many of them. So when word started getting around that Asobi were making a fully fledged, proper, full-size Astrobot game, we were all excited, and this trailer that we saw here absolutely delivered. This is not a pokey little pack-in game. This is 6 galaxies, 80 levels, homages to Uncharted and Journey and Parappa and Ico and Shadow of the Colossus and God of War and Horizon and Ape Escape and Infamous and all of them. But will we have another Fat Princess throwback? That remains to be seen, doesn't it? PlayStation is saying this is about 4 times the size of Astro's Playroom, and that was like 2 to 3 hours long, I think, so this will probably land at like the 10 to 12 hour mark, and that is great, because if it's just tight and focused and brilliant like the original was, then we are in for a very good time. I'm sure some of you are rolling your eyes and thinking, this is what Sony ended their showcase on? And it's like, yes, this is what Sony ended their showcase on, because Astrobot rules, unironically. It's actually fantastic. And I won't be able to convince you of that by saying anything, so my advice to you is, if you have a PS5 and you haven't played Astrobot's Playroom, go and play it right now, and you will immediately be hyped for this full release, which comes out on September 6th, exclusive to PS5, of course. So that was the 2024 PlayStation State of Play. How was it? It was okay. It was solid, that's probably a good word for it. Sony set the right expectations by calling this a state of play versus a showcase, because in aggregate, it was definitely less hard-hitting than last year's show. Astrobot is great and I love it, but will it sell 20 million units like Spider-Man 2 did? Unlikely. Concord is a big question mark that Sony appear to be betting a lot on, but it is in line with their live service push, which struck gold in Helldivers 2, and who's to say it can't happen again with Concord? More broadly, this state of play indicated that when it comes to Sony's big first-party offerings, that we shouldn't expect much from them this year. We know Ghost of Tsushima 2 is the next cab off the rank, and I'm honestly surprised that we didn't see it here, since the 2024 release kind of felt right given overall timelines, but I guess that's not happening anymore. No word from Sony Santa Monica, no word from Naughty Dog, or from Guerrilla, or from Insomniac, no word from House Mark, or Bend, or Bluepoint. Sony did flag to investors that the sales for the PS5 will be soft this year owing to a lack of big tentpole releases, and this state of play was that promise manifest. It's fine, because we know that Sony have plenty cooking, but the overall cadence of releases is likely to leave PS5 fans feeling a little lost in the wilderness this year. I do expect things will start picking up again in 2025, but that's a broader point given the industry is still recovering from the insane truckload of haymaker blockbusters that we saw arrive in 2023. Anyway, that was my take, but what do you guys think? Let me know in the comments below. No, but for real, I actually do care, since I've seen plenty of split opinion on this state of play, and I'd love to know where you guys landed on it. Either way, that is the first big webinar of the Summer Games Festival season done. What else happened in the news this week? Things aren't looking good for Private Division, the AA label owned by Take-Two that's put out some great stuff like Rollerdrome and some not great stuff like Disintegration. Recently, Take-Two laid off a bunch of staff from this label, indicating an intent to downsize it, but a recent investigative report from IGN suggests that Take-Two are looking to completely offload the label, ideally through a sale, but if worse comes to worse, just shutting it down entirely. Connected to this, Take-Two shut down 2 studios, Intercept Games and Roll7, but bizarrely, Take-Two CEO Strauss Zelnick refuses to acknowledge these closures, a move they pulled years ago when they shuttered an Australian-based studio without ever publicly acknowledging it. The discussions for the sale of Private Division are apparently being facilitated by Moon Studios, who have a publishing deal to release No Rest for the Wicked, a game with an ambitious multi-year content plan. IGN reports that there's been apprehension to such a deal given previous reports about the working conditions, culture, and management at Moon Studios. More broadly, IGN say their sources expressed great affection for the Private Division label and were frustrated with Take-Two's leadership, which they say was characterized by unreasonable sales targets and pressure to release games before they were ready. This story is unfolding, so I'm sure there'll be plenty more to report on in the weeks and months to come. Bungie suffered a devastating Final Shape leak just a few days before launch. Doesn't matter too much now since the expansion is now available to all, but the leak did reveal mission and story details, collection tab items like weapons, cosmetics, triumphs, and more. The mistake was most likely Sony's, as they apparently uploaded a build to their cloud streaming service without entirely locking it down, allowing some people to access the expansion for a full 5 hours before access was shut off. Bungie did release a statement on the matter being like, this sucks, because yep, it certainly does. Either way, the expansion is out now, and I'd be playing it right now, but I'm on a plane to LA, where I will be in back-to-back meetings for a full week, not an ounce of Destiny in sight. Please give me your thoughts and prayers during this difficult time. 1 like on the video equals 1 prayer for Ralph, who has to play actual good video games this week instead of playing Destiny 2. Sucks to be me. Valve has officially trademarked the name Deadlock, which now is the absolute worst kept secret in the history of video games. It's a new hero shooter. Yay, another one. But it's like, Valve are kind of allowed to make hero shooters given their connection to the Team Fortress franchise, which by the way is in the absolute shitter right now, as bots have completely ruined that game and Valve has done little to nothing to fix it, leading Team Fortress 2 to hit a mixed review rating on Steam for the very first time ever. Not a great lead-in for your next hero shooter announcement. Fingers crossed Valve don't leave Team Fortress to die in the dirt while they focus on the new hotness. Speaking of leaving a game in a state of disrepair, the final Redfall update is out. It adds 2 incredible cutting-edge features never before seen in a video game. Are you ready? Offline and single-player pause. That's right, baby. We get to pause our video games in 2024. You love to see it. The update also includes new enemy encounters, a revamped neighborhood and nest system, and that's about it. It's a shame that it ends this way. My hope was that Arcane would cease work on Redfall immediately so they could start working on something else, like a new Dishonored game. Turns out they're ceasing work on Redfall because the studio is ceasing work altogether. A very sad end to a studio that deserved better. Apparently Just Cause is getting a film adaptation. You know, the game with basically no plot and no characters and nothing memorable except for its giant explosions? Yeah, Hollywood thought that'd be prime fodder for a movie. Apparently the Blue Beetle director is attached to this. It's being produced by Universal Pictures. I guarantee you this film will never be released. One adaptation that will be released though is the recently announced Like a Dragon Yakuza TV show from Amazon Prime. Now this is good shit right here. It's 6 episodes based loosely on the first game. It's directed by Masaharu Take, a Japanese director with over 30 years of experience in the industry. Kiryu is being played by Ryoma Takeuchi, a popular Japanese actor who got his start in a Power Rangers style TV show called Kamen Rider. This is actually coming pretty soon, with the first 3 episodes landing on October 25th and the next landing on November 1st. Will it be another Netflix Cowboy Bebop? Please God, no, not again. Swinging back to Sony news for just a second, Sony just confirmed the existence of the earlier leaked PSVR 2 PC adapter. It'll retail for $60 and will let you plug your headset into a PC so you can use it to play Steam games or whatever else. Do note though that you're getting a pretty compromised experience when you do this, because the PC adapter can't make use of many of the headset's best features, including HDR, headset haptics, eye tracking, and adaptive triggers on the controllers. This really is just a functional, high-resolution headset that you can plug into a PC, but given how few PSVR 2 games Sony are releasing, this may be the best hope for the future of this hardware. A bombshell report from 404 Media reveals that at least some of the biggest gaming leaks from the past have come from Google employees who are able to view unlisted YouTube videos before relaying the information to various news outlets. This report said it happened to one of the videos on Nintendo's YouTube channel. I'm sure Nintendo's lawyers are licking their chops over this discovery. And finally, EVO 2024 signups have happened, and it's an interesting year for it since 2 major fighting games have released in the past year, Tekken 8 and Mortal Kombat 1. What's fascinating is that Tekken has the 2nd most signups after Street Fighter, while Mortal Kombat has the 7th most signups, trailing less popular franchises like Guilty Gear and Grand Blue Fantasy, as well as classic titles like Street Fighter 3 Third Strike from back in 1999. It's crazy because Mortal Kombat is the highest selling fighting franchise of all time, and MK1 sold absolute gangbusters, over 3 million units in 2 months. Edmond is actually pretty close to the fighting scene, and he thinks it's a function of how much Warner Brothers and NetherRealm realm keep the community focused on single-player grinding, all of that being connected to the game's monetization economy. That's good for shareholders, but bad for fostering a competitive community. If you're at all interested, Edmond's done a full write-up over on our Patreon, free to all, not behind a paywall, so if you're at all interested, I'll leave a link to that below the like button. So what got announced or delayed this week? Well, biggest announcement of the week, according to one unnamed member of the Shill Up team, is the release date for the next Guild Wars 2 expansion. You know what, Austin, you just take this bit, okay?
With pleasure. The upcoming expansion called Janthea Wilds is bringing a slew of fan-requested features like player housing, the first new weapon type with a spear that all classes will gain access to, and a new actual raid in the following patch, something the game hasn't had in over 5 years, believe it or not. Alongside all of this, of course, is new story, maps, gear, mount abilities, and more of those huge open-world events that the MMO is known for. Lots there for both existing players and newcomers to look forward to. It's slated to release on the 20th of August. I may even try to rope in Shill Up himself for a bit of testing. That is, if I can pull him away from Destiny 2.
Yeah, good luck with that, Austin. Best of luck. Anyway, big news for modders. Soon, it'll be even easier to create all of those Baldur's Gate 3 sex mods. That's because Larian just announced that Baldur's Gate 3 is getting official modding support in September of this year for PC, with plans for both Mac and console support at some point in the future. PC mods is great, but console mods are next level. Very few games commit to that, so it's awesome to see. Kena Bridge of Spirits is headed to the Xbox. First released all the way back in 2021, this is a simple but very effective action-adventure game with some very light Souls-like elements, absolutely beautiful visuals, incredible cutscenes, a game really worth checking out if you haven't yet. It arrives on August 15th for Xbox Series consoles. The Riven remake got a release date this week. It'll arrive on June 25th for both PC and Mac. Nice to see them paying tribute to the Mac following by also releasing it there. It's a sequel to Myst, one of the highest selling games of all time back when it released, and it's being made by the same team that made the very successful Myst remake. Also, it has an option for VR right out of the box, which is great. And finally, Wild Bastards got a release date this week. It'll arrive on September 13th. We actually covered this a while back in our Put This On Your Radar segment. It's from the same people that made Void Bastards, a clever sci-fi roguelike set in space. This looks to be very similar, but set in the Wild West. Of course, that's not the only thing that's different. The visual style is definitely a step up over the previous game. Plus, this is a really competent team, so I'm sure they've got plenty of other surprises in store for us. This one's headed to all platforms. Only one delay announcement this week, and it's for the much anticipated Little Nightmares 3. This one's being developed by Supermassive Games, actually, the first time they've taken the reins on the franchise. This was originally meant to drop sometime in 2024, but will now arrive in 2025. No specific date. The team said that things were going well, but they needed more time to refine and polish what they're working on. Absolutely no arguments there. So what came out last week? Well, Skald Against the Black Priory is that retro Ultima-inspired dungeon crawler RPG. It's had a fairly triumphant arrival, not many critic reviews out yet, but on Steam it's sitting at an overwhelmingly positive 96%. Perhaps the best review comes from the one and only Sven Vinky, boss man at Larian Studios, makers of Baldur's Gate 3. He was raving about the game over on Twitter, saying, quote, "This is the one I've been waiting for, have nothing but respect for the ambitions here, and I love how it looks. The little I've seen already fills me with deep respect for what Anders and his team have accomplished. It feels right from the get-go, which for an RPG like this is quite the accomplishment. I'm flying to LA next week and plan to play the entire flight. My playtime is limited, so that's probably the biggest compliment I can give," end quote. Not a bad endorsement from the man himself. Umbra Claw is that game about a house cat that dies and then wakes up in some weird dimension where they get superpowers and become a total badass. It's meant to be pretty good, 83% positive on Steam. Silicon Era scored it a 7 out of 10, saying, quote, "I love the idea behind Umbra Claw and its character designs. However, the demanding nature and restrictions I place on myself while playing and some design choices keep me from savoring it as much as other platformers. The idea of growing stronger via deaths for second chances is so refreshing though, and people who really enjoy a challenge may relish the chance to see how far they can go without faltering," end quote. That new F1 game dropped. It's another F1 game, but it's made by Codemasters, so you knew it was going to be good. Sure enough, it is. It's a strong 82 on OpenCritic. Screen Rant scored it a 4 out of 5, saying, quote, "It might not be a necessary purchase for those who have owned an entry from the last couple of years, but Codemasters once again proves its ability to make the best racing games on the market," end quote. And finally, Sulaco. Alrighty, here we go. I highlighted this one a bunch in the past because from the minute I got my hands on it, I was like, this totally rules. That was a preview build back then, and this past week it launched into early access exclusive to Steam. It's sitting at 90% very positive there. Basically no critic reviews out yet as it's just an early access launch, but boomer shooter enthusiast G-Man Lives did a review for it over on his channel. Really recommend checking that out if you're at all interested. He loved it and had nothing but praise for it. I do expect big things from Sulaco as it continues on its early access journey, so you can either grab it right now at a discount or wait until the full 1.0 release sometime in the future. So what's coming out this week? Man, not much. See, games companies now know that it's suicide to launch in the second or third third week of June when the airwaves are blanketed with big reveals and announcements from what used to be called E3 and is now affectionately referred to as Jeff Keighley's annual Trailerama. Still, a few games are choosing to brave the media tsunami, like Blockbuster Incorporated. The movie business may be dying, but Blockbuster Incorporated is determined to remember it fondly, build your own sets, scout your own actors, manage box office receipts, and build your cinematic empire one show reel at a time. This is like that old Peter Molyneux game, The Movies, from back in the day when that dude actually released video games instead of just hyping them up and then delivering absolutely nothing. Blockbuster Incorporated looks like good, clean fun, and it's out tomorrow exclusive to PC. Assassin's Creed Mirage, they found a way to squeeze it onto mobile devices. On June 6th, if you have an iPhone 15 or an M1 or greater iPad, you will be able to play a full version of Assassin's Creed Mirage on your device. There's even a free trial available so you can see for yourself how well it runs. Do expect more of this stuff, I think, as Apple's silicon and just hardware in general is very quickly catching up with what dedicated gaming hardware is able to do, and with a drift away from consoles, I can definitely see this segment picking up steam quickly, no pun intended. Autopsy Simulator is a medical sim horror game with the gore factor turned up to 11, so much so that I've asked you to edit around the gore so this video doesn't get demonetized. It looks kind of interesting though. It's a great premise. You're stuck in a morgue performing autopsies to contribute to case files, and the shit starts getting weird and scary because of course it does. It's out on June 7th exclusive to PC. And finally, V Rising arrives on PS5 this week after a very successful early access period and 1.0 launch on PC. You guys know V Rising, I've been speaking about it for months. It's good shit. If you have a PS5, you should buy it. It's arriving on June 11th. Alright, so there's generally a certain vibe to the kind of game we profile in the Put This On Your Radar segment. So this week we're just going to go totally nuts and profile something completely different. With that said, put this on your radar. We don't get many games set in ancient India, do we? Well, this is one of them. It's called Aikyam, which I'm sure I'm mispronouncing, but this is the best I can do. It's inspired by Bollywood, of all things. You can tell because the combat here is actually like a dance-off, and if you've ever watched any Bollywood film, you would know that many conflicts are settled by dancing. Visually, this has a really cool toy-like aesthetic, almost like Indian version of those Russian stacking dolls. It just has a lot of personality, and its setting is unique, and rhythm-based, turn-based combat riffing on Bollywood is a great combat conceit. What here looks pretty early on, but it does look promising, and I'm quietly cheering for this one. If you'd like to support it or maybe pick it up one day, then the best thing you can do right now is wishlist it over on Steam. I've left a link to it over on my Steam Curator page, which also has links to all of the other Put This On Your Radar stuff I've recently covered. I'll leave a link to all of that below the like button. Sort of free stuff time now, and there really is not much since we covered PS Plus, Amazon Prime Gaming, and Game Pass last week. Luckily though, Epic are always coming in clutch to save us. Right now you can grab the very excellent and very gory Chivalry 2. Not the first time Epic has given this one away, I don't think, but it's always a welcome entry. Next week though, pay attention because the leaks indicate that Marvel's Midnight Suns will be up for grabs, and as I've said many times before, this is a game of two halves. The first being an utterly exceptional strategy superhero game, the likes of which we will sadly never see again, and the other half an utterly insufferable YA novel featuring the worst rendition of these heroes you will find outside of a dollar store knockoff action figure. Spacebar through all the dialogue, and I promise you, you will have a ball. Our feel-good story for the week is a pretty awesome one, to be honest. I actually didn't have time to report on this a while back, so I'm really glad that I now have the chance to circle back to this. The Playdate console, you might remember this one. It's a very odd but ultimately very cool device that lets you play simple games that are purpose-built for that device. It has a small form factor, it has a crank, it's just weird and cool and weird. Anyway, around the time it launched, FedEx misdelivered a whole truckload of them to a construction site, and rather than report this misdelivery, someone at or near the construction site just stole them. Just straight up mafioso level shit where something goes missing from a construction site. Like David Chase himself could not write it any better. Anyway, these things were essentially written off as gone. Playdate booked the loss. They were never coming back. End of story. Until last week, when out of nowhere, this entire shipment of missing Playdates turned up curbside outside a random restaurant in Las Vegas. Playdate Twitter account tweeted out photos of the discovery, and yeah, there they are. They went on to say that some of the Playdates were missing, so clearly someone had popped these boxes open, hoping to offload the merchandise, but then just couldn't because this product is so weird and so niche that you can't just like sell this out the back of an illegal casino or whatever. I really really am picturing Paulie Walnuts opening these boxes expecting like high definition DVD players or some shit and being like, hey T, what's this crank for? Before Tony just like smashes a box of them in rage and then orders Paulie to dump them wherever he can. Oh man, to be a fly on the wall when the crooks made the decision to give this stuff back. That is a Netflix series right there. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that's it from me. Like I said, as you watch this, I am hopefully landing safely in LA, ready for a massive week ahead. This was the last regular show for a while. There won't be a regular show next week as we'll still be in the thick of Summer Games Fest coverage. So this is your last chance for 2 weeks to drop the regular show format alike. The button's right there. Thank you very much. Appreciate you. Do subscribe because this week is literally the biggest week of content that we will do all year. We've got so much coming. Be sure to ding that notification bell as well, since I can tell you right now, there will be a bunch of videos you won't want to miss. Thanks for sticking around as always, and a big thanks to this week's sponsor, Eureka Ergonomic. At this point, you might have heard of this video's sponsor, Eureka Ergonomic. They have a huge range of unique and stylish furnishings to personalize your home, from sleek ergonomic home office stuff to elegant designer-crafted living room pieces to rare and artistic paraphernalia, decorations, and displays. Eureka Ergonomic always mix function and form to deliver impressive furniture for the modern home. I have a bunch of Eureka stuff at this point. Their Curio display cabinet is wonderful and lets me showcase some of my favorite collectibles. Their smart coffee table is actually incredible because it has an actual fridge inside it. This is like my favorite piece of furniture. But some of the best stuff that Eureka Ergonomic makes are their standing desks. I have one in my home. Austin actually has one too. They're extremely well-built, feature-packed desks that give you everything you'd want or need from a standing desk. But Eureka Ergonomic have gone even further with the release of their Arc series. Just from the look of it, you can tell that this is not your average standing desk. This is a really stylish piece that's meant to do more than just get the job done. It's meant to look really stunning while doing it. And that's the thing, right? Like, no disrespect to the whole gamer motif thing, but as we get older, we kind of grow out of that and we want our stuff to look, you know, nice, timeless, a little class, you know? The Arc is that sort of standing desk that sits proudly at the center of any home office or studio and sets the tone for the rest of the room. But it's not just the look, mind you. It comes with Eureka Ergonomic's dual motor memory technology for smooth and reliable lift, with the ability to set presets for different heights so you can switch between them with a single button press. Select models also come with a hidden USB dock and wireless charging for your devices. There's a huge range of styles and configurations to choose from with different colors, material types, and storage add-ons. Personally, I'm a fan of the Arc X, which has this deep brown finish and elegant PU leather on the desktop. Whatever your preference, Eureka Ergonomic are offering up to 25% off their Arc range when you visit eurekaergonomic.com/skillup. That link will get you access to those discounts, so be sure to click through on that. It's pasted in the description and in the top comment. That's 25% off a sleek, stylish, and feature-packed standing desk that'll transform your workspace when you visit eureka.com/skillup. Thanks Eureka Ergonomic for sponsoring the video, and thank you for watching it.